Yes, you are awake. That's awesome. I'm here today just to talk a little bit about my experience and how I work with Vue modules in practice. But a little bit before that, I want to present myself. So my name is actually Geisy Domiciano, but usually it's very difficult for people to say it, so call me Geisy. Do that, you're going to get a 200 as response. Okay? I know I'm a little bit different from that picture, but that's actually my natural hair. It's under here, I swear, somewhere. I'm originally from Brazil, but I live in Sweden since January 2018. And I have been working with Vue since 2017, and in Next, even before the version 1. I'm also the chapter leader of Vue Vixens in Sweden. And the goal of Vue Vixens is to introduce diversity inside the tech community, especially Vue. So we provide free learning for women, and we have chapters in different parts of the globe. I don't think we have one in Italy, so if any women here wants to just stood up and start the community and teach other women, would be awesome, because looking here, we're what, 10? That's the thing. Why? We can help each other. We can teach each other, even though if you know just a little bit. You start something. The little bit you know will be enough just to boost other women to start. So that's our goal. I'm also a front-end developer inside Daniel Wellington. I work there for their internal influencer platform for the marketing. So every time you see influencer wearing a Daniel Wellington watch, it's because I built a platform that they can actually use the watch and post it, and then you buy watches. Yes. For the ones that want, down here it's my Twitter and my GitHub. So my Twitter is Geisy Domiciano, like the name, and the GitHub is G Domiciano, and just follow there. So let's start talking about what we are here to talk. How many of you know what Vuex is? How many of you actually use it? Nice. Good. I will just do a brief introduction. So Vuex is a state management pattern and library. It's based on Flux. And we use it to make sure that every state that needs to change inside your application, it's going to go through actions and mutations, and then you won't have problem with one part of your application being updated and other part or not. Other part it's not going to be, and you don't have to do event buses and do all the job yourself. So you don't have to pass information to the parent and then go down again to the small components. This is a really nice chart that we have in the Vuex documentation. So basically here you have a Vue component, and let's imagine that you're loading your page, and the first thing you need is to show products. Well, I work for a company that sells watches, so let's talk about products. So what? So your component needs to have a set of products. So when you load the page, you need to dispatch an action, and this action will be responsible for actually talking to your API through a synchronous call, or sometimes just actually setting some sort of data. So every data that it's gonna be loaded in your page, it's gonna be requested for the action. This is the person. This is the part of the code that will be responsible for that. Once you get the feedback from your API or wherever you're getting your data, you're going to do a commit to a mutation. And this mutation can always be followed inside the DevTools that I assume most of you that work with Vue uses it. And the mutation is actually the one that reassign the data to the state. So you'll get whatever response you got from the action and put it in a data that was previously empty, because you did not have any product, so now you most likely have an array of products. And once this mutation is done, sorry. Okay. Once this mutation is done, your state will be updated, and the data will be re-rendered through reactivity inside Vue, because Vuex already deals with the reactivity, so it will be available for your screen. So when we actually, oh gosh, I'm so nervous. Ooh. There you go. When you start with Vuex, especially if you go to the documentation, so all the examples that I have here that I'm going to show to you, it is on the documentation. I'm actually using the official examples just to explain, so when you go there, you'll be able to recognize what I'm talking about. So when you start, you're most likely going to start with the classical mode. You have a file called store.js, and that file, you have the initial state declaration. So this is a counter, so the count will be set as 0. You are going to develop a set of actions, and those actions are going to be responsible for getting the next data that will be updated in your previous state that you have initially. So inside the actions, you have access to a context, and this context has functions such as commit, dispatch. You have the actual state inside. And we use it to pass the information to communicate with the mutations and such. So here, the actions, they expect a commit function that will actually be the ones that call the mutations that does the assignment of the new value for your state. And once all this is done, sometimes you need to use getters, and getters are responsible for not responsible for, but you're going to use them when you have a state, but you need to compute it in a different way. So sometimes you just want to print on the screen just the even numbers from your counter. You don't want to print the screen the odd numbers. And then that's when you're going to use a getter. And after you write all this file, you have to make this available to your application. So you're going to create an instance of the store exporting your state, getters, mutations, and actions. So you can use it on your actual components. Sorry. Go, take the picture. Go, 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 go. Done? 3, 2, 1. Yes. Sorry. But your application is going to grow, or maybe your application is a little bit bigger, and you're going to have several actions, several mutations, and a lot of stuff in a file that will be most likely 400 lines. Have you ever tried to maintain 400 lines of code? It's fun, right? Not really. So you're going to start creating files to separate the concerns. So you're going to have the store folder instead of a file. You're going to put some actions in an action file. You're going to put some getters in a getters file. You can have the state. The index is the one that's actually, it's going to be this file here, where you're going to import your actions, your getters. The mutations are right here. I did not put an arrow because I was going to cross over everything. But this file will import all the actually content for your store, and will be already easier to maintain. And then the state here, it's interesting because it's accessing something that is available or not on your local storage. So you can also, like, once you create it, you just can check information, you either get from an API that already had the response, or get from local storage, or set as null. And then, yeah, fine. We did the separation. That's cool, right? You're separated croissants. It's easy to maintain. Nice, awesome. However, sometimes your application, it's not just to expose in your GitHub, or it's not only a job assignment. And then it grows, or it has a broader scope, such as, wait, I don't know how to do this. Whoop. There you go. Wow, that's big. Such as a product page. Example, so you have products, you have cart, you add things to the cart, you add things again, and then you need to change the quantity. You can do the checkout and stuff. So this application is a little bigger, has a little bit more of complexity. What do we do? And it's 3 fingers, right? 3 fingers, I learned it. So what do? We start using Vuex Modules. Why? Because Vuex allow us to export and modularize your store in a way where you're going to have one responsibility that will have its own state, its own actions, its own mutations, and you can export it and access from any component that needs or depends on that data, and you can make them communicate to each other. Yeah, but how does this even work? Because you can have nested modules. How the naming works, what's going to change? A lot of things is going to change. We don't like much change. So let's start for the first one. Structure will look like something like this. You're going to have the store folder, keep it. You're going to have your main file, the index. And you're going to have a new folder, most likely called modules. And you're going to have your modules here that they have different concerns. They are different parts of your application. But as we just saw on the example, they communicate. They talk to each other. So how is this implementation actually? So this is the actual index file. This is also on the website, on the Vuex documentation, so you can just access the Git, and then you will be able to check the same files. I just changed the API and put any Wellington watches there. So you're going to have this index file, and this file will import both of your modules, so the cart and the products are here. And they're going to declare them inside the modules object. So you're going to make a reference to it here. And that's the first thing you're going to change. That's the first thing that you're going to change as structure speaking. And then more things needs to change so you can have the proper implementation or use the best from modules. So first thing that you're going to have is local state. What is the local state? It is the fact that now every module will have its own state, getters, actions, mutations. So this state up here, they are accessible from the context. So when you do mutations, you access your current state, and you say, assign a new value to my current state. That's what you do. But this state, it's not the root anymore. It's the state that is referred inside this module file. So you need to be aware of that, because you can't try to access one thing and then it's like, oh, it's not there. What change is you're going to have to access your store and then .cart, because we do the $store store state, and then we access whatever we want. But and then you're going to say like cart, and then you're going to access whatever you want. In this case, here would be items. That's one thing that is going to change in your implementation. Another thing, namespaces. And this is magical. I like magic. This is magical. Why? Because namespacing, if you don't say if a module should be namespaced, and if you have two models that for some reason they will have the same name of mutation or the same name of action, both will be executed. Even though if you call one, the other one is on the root scope, so it will be executed anyway. So that's why we say that it is important to define a namespace, so you know that all the content of your module will be specific and executed when you call only the module. Otherwise, it will be available for everything. Because what happens, like, when the store starts, whatever you try to access, if it's not namespace, it's just not go through and access all the functions. You're calling functions, right? If they are available in your scope, they are going to be executed. So you're going to have something that will be executed twice, and the end result might not be the one that you expected. So I truly recommend you to use namespace. And where the names, I'm trying to use Mac, it's really difficult. Sorry. And then that's the thing about the root state, because your root state is actually still be available. You will still be able to access it through store.state for when you make references inside your components. You're going to use root state when you need to use mixed values inside getters or mutations. So for example, here, we use the root state to actually be able to get all the products, loop through them, and show them inside the cart. Because there is no sense for me to, inside my cart, go get my products and then put a state here. I can just access another module. So that's what's happening here. However, you cannot just jump from one module like another. You go to the root state and then you access your modules. All your modules, they will be available under the root state, unless if you define a sub-module and then you have to go through them, because you'd have like another module object here, and then you have to go under. Yeah, this is one, and another one, it's the root true. So even though you are using module and they're namespaced, but in some cases you might want to actually make your products available from anywhere in your application because they are the same. And then in this case, you use root true inside your action. This works just for action. The root scope is not going to be available. You need to use this object, and then use the handle function, and then you actually put whatever you need the action to do. So that's the difference of how you implement and deal with root state after starting using namespace and modules. And after that, you will realize that your helpers implementation is going to be easier. How many of you here, raise your hands, who actually use helpers? Okay. Well, the helpers, they are just this reference here, where you don't have, where you, instead of having to use like this.store.dispatch and then actually go to an action, you would use it just inside your, sorry, I went to the wrong file. Inside your methods, you can just say which module you want to access and which action you want to be available inside your file. And this is not only cool, just like to be available, you write less code when you need to dispatch it, because you can just put like this.add the product to cart instead of doing this. But it's also going to be available for your template, and you can use it straight as a function of the method. You don't have to call the store state module name and then fall, and then the actual name of the action you want to go through. So this is really useful. And we have it for state, actions, and getters. We don't have it for mutations, for obvious reasons. You are not supposed to access mutation without passing from an action. So only what you're available to access or call, it's going to be available from the helpers. I don't even think that you can use the plugins. Now we have plugins in Vuex as well. Not going to talk about it. Not today. Let me see here. So here it's an example of how to use getters. And you also access it calling the name of the getter. And here they have this products reference, because it's actually how you're going to reference inside your template. So we use products for everything. And then the products are referring to the cart products getter that it's going to be inside your cart file. So down, getters, here. So cart products here. That is the one that access the root state, that get all the products that are in the other model and show them. So basically, it's when we do this add to cart. This is what that getter is bringing to us. It's making a mix of both modules and showing it to you. It's the information available filtered, so you don't have to put this logic inside your component and repeat every time. So it is already there, you just call it and it's done. And I guess it's interesting to show how the actual, can everyone see this? Or is it too big? I will try to, is it readable from the back? Nice. So here, one thing that's interesting to see is that from the Vue tools, you can check your base state in the beginning. So you see that the cart products were empty, your getters are here, your state is here. In the initial request, everything was empty, but after we're doing the call, you can see what actually changed, for which type of property has changed. So which type of mutation we did? Inside the products module, we set the products. So this is the mutation that changed your state. And this is the version of your new state after your mutation. So now we should have products with all the objects from my API. This can be very useful for debugging because sometimes you can have a really big list of modules. We have nowadays a really big list of modules and getters. We work with getters for everything. We don't access the state, actually. We just we use only getters to access the components. So this getter list is something like this size. And then, if you did not use modules, it would be something like this size, or ordered in alphabetical way. And sometimes you need to know if you are actually using the right mutations, and then you're like, how am I supposed to find it? So as you're using namespaced modules, you will be able to see the name first of the module, so you're just going to focus on that set of mutations, of getters, of state that you want to check. So use the Vue tools. It's going to save so much time of your life. You had no idea. And trust me, in big applications, sometimes your colleague is going to update some code. They're going to create a new mutation, and you just don't know the name. Sometimes it's going to be easier to just check here. That's something really cool. I don't know, do I have more time? Do I? Nice. So why would you use, I guess it's quite clear why, but I'm just going to point it out. So you're going to use Vuex Modules to separate context. Aha, nice. Now I saw the 10 there. I have 10 minutes. You're going to use it to separate context or pages. Because in few cases, you have one page that does only one thing. You're not going to have 5 modules for that page. You're going to have one module that will be just caring about one page functionality. But when we talk about an e-commerce, you have the country selector that will change your internationalization of your platform. You have the list of products. You have list of categories. You have breadcrumb. You have the checkout. And maybe you might have something else, an order history that will be shown or whatever. So you have several contexts, several scopes that they will communicate, but they are inside the page. So careful, because in the beginning, it's very likely that you want to build like one module per page. Don't do it. I learned it. Don't do it. Think about the context and also the responsibility of everything that does and everything that happens and interacts in your page. Maintainability. It's going to be way easier to maintain this if you know which context it is inserted in. The files are going to be smaller, they're going to be easier to read, and most likely you're not going to repeat yourself, which is very important. Because you can just reuse the modules since you can just communicate them. You don't have to make the same call for API twice or the same mutation twice. You can just reuse the data wherever you want. And last but not least is the communication, but this set of things means that you're coding with love, you know, because you're going to be happy about the code you're maintaining. You're going to be happy about what you're building, so that's awesome. And how many of you, again, that use Nuxt? Great. So think about Nuxt. You can actually implement in the classical way or in the module A. However, the classical way is going to be deprecated. It is deprecated already, and it is recommended to stop using. So you just learned about Vuex modules. So if you are going to start using Nuxt, go with the module mindset, and everything that you're going to name as a module, instead of having this modules folder here, actually you're just going to throw this away and have cart and products straight inside the store folder. You won't have to say namespace true, because when you do that, Nuxt already understands that this is going to be namespaced. So you don't have to do a lot of setup and stuff. And you also not need to declare this modules part here, because when the project's compiled, will be done under the hood. So that's awesome. You save you so much time in the beginning. And one little implementation that's going to change, actually, that's a really tiny thing, it's the state implementation. Because in the very beginning, you saw that the state in Vue, it's going to be defined as an object and will be used everywhere, because that's what the state tree is a big object. Cool, but when we go to Next, you have to use a function, such as we implement the data inside the components. So the same thing happens here. The state is going to become a function that returns an object for, so you know that every time your application renders, you're going to get a fresh state. That's the only thing that will actually change on the way that you implement Vuex in Next. Okay, so that's all for today. Thank you very much.